I feel privileged to be here among you, and particularly so because I see Toronto as the epicenter of Reform Islam in the Western world. You who are locals may not realize this, but this is a unique city. It's not Paris, and it's not Sydney, and it's certainly not Los Angeles. It's Toronto. This has a concentration, Canada in general, Ontario in particular, and Toronto in particular, most especially, has a concentration of reformist Muslims that is unparalleled. And so this is the place to hold this kind of meeting, and I wish many more will follow. Now, the underlying motif of today's discussions was not everyone takes Reform Islam seriously. The Islamists disdain it as false. The left sees it as inauthentic. The anti-Islam right dismisses it as fabulous. And so much of the effort is to establish that this is a credible movement with a serious future. And I can understand it's easy to despair. There's so many nasty signs, not just far away, but locally. The Trudeau government and the sisters upstairs. The mosques, we hear of the imams making these horrible statements. I've been hearing anecdotes about schools and the media. There's so many of these, and it's easy to despair. But I would like to use my few minutes to suggest you should not, we should not despair. That in fact, hard as it may be to see, we are on the winning team. And my argument will be that the Islamist movement, for all its gaudy successes in places like Raqqa, is actually doing poorly. And this is of quite recent vintage. I'd say since about 5 years ago, it seems to me that the Islamist movement is in decline. Not speaking now of Toronto, but worldwide. And there are two major elements to this decline. The first is that the Islamists, when they rule a people, a country, become despised by their subject populations. The most dramatic illustration of this was in Egypt in 2012 to 13. In came Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood. Forever it looked like, and 1 year exactly later, they were gone, due to the largest political demonstration in human history. Nobody knows exactly, but it's in the not just millions, but tens of millions. Maybe as much as 1/4 of the country, a third of the country was out on the streets. Amazing event. And the result was Morsi was gone. There are plenty of other illustrations of that. Survey research suggests that in Iran, 85% of the population is deeply alienated from its rulers, the Islamic Republic. The incidence of pathologies, of drunkenness and drug taking and prostitution and so on is extremely high. People can't stand their government. And if you look at other places like in Turkey and Bangladesh, Sudan, where Islamist rule is in place, you'll see also great alienation. Muslims who experience Islamist rule don't like it. And the most dramatic case would be ISIS, the Islamic State, where every report from there is of impoverization, oppression, horrific circumstances, medicines, food, water, everything is in short supply, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you breach anything and you'll be whipped or worse. So the Islamists are creating their own enemies through their success. Secondly, it was not so long ago that the Islamists worked together. The Sunnis and the Shias, the monarchists and the Republicans, the violent and the non-violent, the Salafi and the Ikhwani, the ones with the beards down to here and the ones with the beards like mine, the women with the hijabs and the women with the niqabs, they worked together. They had common purpose. Well, that's fallen apart. And the symbol here would not be Egypt, but Syria, where the Iranian-backed governmental Shiite-oriented forces are at war with the Qatari, Saudi, and Turkish-backed Sunni jihadi forces. And they're going at it year after year with hundreds of thousands of deaths and extraordinary pain all around. This is the most dramatic, but everywhere you look, you see the Islamists can't work together. In Egypt, for example, the government of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is determined to exterminate the Muslim Brotherhood, but it's pals with the Salafis. A little hard to understand, but that's the situation now for 4 years. In Saudi Arabia was for decades the main backer of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then one fine day a few years ago, the Saudis suddenly realized that the Muslim Brotherhood is Republican and they've got a monarchy. And there's really not a good fit at all. And so they stopped supporting it. For 15 years, the now president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was a close ally of the powerful mullah who now lives in Pennsylvania, Fethullah Gulen. They worked together beautifully until 2011, and since then it's absolute political war. And particularly since last July with the coup attempt, in quotes, that the government is arresting anyone with the slightest connection to the Gulen movement. On and on and on. You see, they can't work together. So between the unpopularity of Islamist rule and the inability, increasing inability of the Islamists to cooperate, I see this as a movement in decline. Plus, there's a much larger fact that this is a movement that's doomed. It's a retrogressive movement that is completely out of kilter with modern life. There is an alternative. There is a body of people and thought that is, I think, the future of the Muslim world, that is represented in this room, and is represented, let's say, symbolically by the liberals of Tahrir Square in 2011. These were generally younger people who sought to live as Westerners. And through my travels and other connections to the Middle East and other Muslim majority countries, I find that such people are plentiful. Nowhere are they in power. Nowhere can they impose their will, but they're there. And they are the ones that our governments, our academic institutions, our media, and others should be supporting. They are the hope. They are the ones. It's not limited to this room. They are all over. And they are the hope for the future. It's not the military tyrants. It's not the kings and the emirs. And it's certainly not the Islamists. But there is this hope in the liberal Muslim population that wants to live a modern life. So we here are part of something much larger. And again, Toronto is an epicenter, so it's exciting to be here. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, despite the many things that I hear that cause me to shake my head in despair about current circumstances. I'm hopeful that what we are doing here, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, in combination, to fight the Islamist menace, is going to prevail. We defeated the fascists in World War II. We defeated the communists in the Cold War. And now we will defeat the Islamists together. Thank you.